Hello and welcome to Python 101. This is session number 4, and we're talking about Python strings. In the previous session, we talked about Python strings as well, and we looked at some basic uh, operations on string. We looked at concatenation, some multiplication, indexing, and slicing. And we're going to move our discussion forward into string class. We're going to explore some things which are very specific to strings and not other built-ins. All right, so let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about that we have not discussed so far, really quickly, is the naming convention. Okay. How do you name things in Python? Okay, so for that, actually, let me fire up the terminal. That would be best. So, the naming convention in Python, there is a full guideline on how to name things. I can share the link, but I'll just quickly tell you right now. First, variables. The way you name variable in Python is you everything is small, no uppercases. So suppose you have to say number of whatever oranges, then that's how you will name the variable. Each word is separated by underscores, and you have multiple words which are separated by underscores. Everything is small. That's the convention of naming a variable. Similar naming convention follows for functions. So suppose you want to say calculate whatever area. If you want to define a function like that, then essentially it will be like this. Right, so that's how you name the functions as well. Later on, when we check the classes, the class has a slightly different type of naming convention. It's called Pascal naming convention. So what is that? That basically is you write like this. Each word starts with a capital letter. Like that. So words are not separated by underscores, but they each word starts with a capital letter. So those three, I'll tell you right now, and then as we move along, if we encounter something else, I will tell you. There are a few other things that I'm intentionally ignoring right now. So, for example, there are single underscore things, and then there are double underscore names that start with single underscore and double underscore. We will talk about these when we talk about modules. Right. So, a quick word on the naming convention. In the previous session, we were looking at slicing, and towards the end, I just quickly told you about the beginning and the ending. If the string, if you want to slice something from the beginning or to the end, then essentially you don't have to specify the index. So suppose you have universe, and it's really fast. If somebody tells you get the first three letters, then essentially that's the first three letters. Last three letters, you do -3, that's the last three letters. Okay, so if you don't specify a range, that means begin. Following that, if you write just this, then it's complete string. And slicing returns a new string. Okay, it doesn't modify the original string. You get a new string back. So if you were to say x equals to that, then essentially x is now universe. Okay, so that was a bit word on slicing. Now let's get to the exploring the string class. If I write str, you will notice that the terminal will just say, okay, this is class str type. Okay, so how do we explore anything in Python? Is basically using the dir function. Let's look at the dir of str. So when we go here, once again, there are functions that start with double underscore. These are some things that Python uses internally to do some operations. For example, add is used for the concatenation. And this definition, you can change it if you want to, and we will see how to change it later on when we talk about classes. But right now, this is out of scope. So all of these functions with double underscore are something that we don't focus at the moment. But then we have all of these utilities, all of these methods like capitalize, casefold, center, count. So we can check these. Suppose you want to find out the definition of anything, then essentially what you have to do is get a help on this. And the way to get help on a method inside the class, which is not built in, you can write help on the class name or the module name, and you write capitalize, and you get the help. So help on this method descriptor, capitalize. So return a capitalized version of the string. Okay. So that's how you get. Just there are built-ins and then there are methods within classes. So if you have, let's say, a built-in like uh, len, you can call it whenever you want without going through any class. But if you have something like, let's say, upper inside the str module, for example, there should be an upper, yes, here. Then the way you want to call it is you want to say str dot upper. So whatever the string is, that upper. So if you have, let's say, x equals to Saturn, and then you say x dot upper to turn the string into uppercase. But as always, suppose I have a string x equals to Saturn. I can do x dot upper, that turns the whole string to uppercase, but it doesn't change the original string. It the x is still the old string. It returns a new string. All of the operations of string on strings will return a new string. They will never change the original string. Let's look at some of the functions. Any questions, first of all?
The naming conventions, are they mandated or is it just advisory?
It's advisory, but yeah, I mean, it is advisory. And in many places, I have seen functions being camel case. So people write functions like define something like number of ways like this. Seen it? So, I mean, if you have a code base in your company which is like this, then you can follow it. But what Python's convention is to follow this way.
And how do you nest them?
Nest what?
The functions, like if you want the upper of the uh, beginning of the string, for example.
Oh, how do you nest them? Oh, that's good. So essentially, here's what you can do. Let's look at some of the examples. Suppose you have a string s is equals to, say universe. Then you can write s dot upper will give you uh, the new string. Now this is a new string object. This s dot upper is a new string object. So you can once again call another function on it, dot lower. So then you have a smaller case string from that point. So you can, each of these methods is returning a new string, and then you can call a new method on it. So when you say x dot upper, this returns a new string object. And then you can put a dot in front of it. It's the same thing as putting a dot here. That was your question, right?
I think she's looking for how to do like an initial cap. So you have that universe all lowercase, but then you want to make universe uppercase U and then lowercase everything else.
Oh, yeah, you can do that way. So there is, what is this? There are some function, right? What is, let's
Is
see.
title maybe? Is title?
shouldn't be is title, but what is this?
It was capitalized.
Let's look at capitalize. I think, but capitalize is gonna make string capitalize the very first character. Let's look at that. You have s dot capitalize. So if your string was, let's say, all lowercase like Mars, and you did s dot capitalize, that will capitalize the very first character. And if you do case fold, I think that is not going to work. Let's look at case fold real quick. Sorry. Case fold essentially, so I think gave you the answer, I guess. No, that didn't give you the answer. Yeah.
S capitalized did it.
Yep. Oh, okay. Perfect. Oh, so you're looking for this. Okay. All right. So let's look at some functions that are important. And once again, there are few ways you can get help. One is to use this. Other one is to just go online and look for Python str. And it will give you everything related to Python strings, and then you can look at everything that's there. Now,
Hi, Manch. One
yes,
question on the strings. So
yes,
when we do concatenation of strings, every time will it create a new object?
yes,
Okay, so like it completely allocates new memory to that, right?
yes,
Sorry, I
yes.
also missed one part. So capitalize and upper will also return a mutated string, right?
Not a mutated string; it's a new string.
A new string. Okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah. And right after this, I'm going to discuss the mutability and immutability, so that will become more clear over there. Okay.
When quick question.
Yes.
When you use the help and then it in the terminal window, it takes to a different screen. How do you come back?
Just hit Q.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at some of these functions. These functions are very powerful. They get most of the work done. So you have seen, for example, is lower will turn everything to lower, upper will turn everything to upper. And then you have, you can check something like is lower, for example, is digit. So suppose there's a string, okay, and the string is 56, and you say s dot is digit, then that returns a true. So it returns a true or false. And if you have, let's say, a string as 5a, and you write as digit, then it will return false. Then you have other methods here. Some of these I'm going to give you as an assignment to explore, okay, but I'm going to tell you a few of these right now. So there is basically find. Let's look at find. Okay, so first of all, let's do help on str.find. So returns the lowest index in S where a substring sub is found. So this is the syntax, and whatever is the lowest index where that element is present, that will be returned. So let's go and suppose S equals to universe. Actually, let's take a better string. Let's say A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, like that. And suppose you do s.find of D. That gives you the very first D that's present. There are ways to find all the occurrences, and they are in regex. We will talk about that later on. But right now, that's the, if you do find, it will give you the very first occurrence of that thing. And then you have replace.
Can you give find a starting point?
Yes, you can give find a starting point. So that's, I think this mentioned, you can say something like maybe 5, and then it will begin at the 5th index, and then it will go from that point onwards. So this is the 5th index here. So it will begin from that. So that's the D after that, I guess. All right. Another important function, replace. Okay. Let's look at the help.
One question on the find. If
Yeah.
you look at the help, it says the find has sub and then 2 square brackets. What does that mean? So there is sub open square bracket, comma, start open square bracket, comma, end close square brackets.
So essentially, this is what it's saying is you. So these is optional parameters, right? That's how you define function. These are optional parameters. If you don't pass them, they will continue. This will continue to work. But if you do supply them, then it's going to look within those ranges, and that's what I showed just right now.
Right. So the nomenclature is square brackets are denotes optional parameters.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it works. Yeah. So when you say 5, 9, then oh yeah. So okay, that's your question. If these square parameters, this means that it's an optional parameter there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Himanshu, another question.
Yeah.
So when we did the S find B, it just gave the answer as 3, right? So
Right.
but there are 2Ds as well in the string. So why doesn't it find the other ones?
No, so that's how this function is working. If you want to find the rest of these, then we'll cover trick later on. But this is how this function will work.
Okay, so it just returns the first letter which it finds.
First index where the pattern is found.
Okay.
And you can do whole pattern as well. So suppose you were to say like s.find, let's say cd, then it will match where this substring is first present, wherever, and that this index 2, this one. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to try this out real quick if you want to try out. All right, let's look at the another important function that we will use in assignments as well. That's the replace function. So let's get a help on str.replace, and you will say that return a copy with all the occurrences of substring old replaced by new. So you pass, suppose this is the string, and what you do is you pass the string you want to replace. Suppose you want to replace BC by maybe a hyphen. So you say replace BC with this. So when you do that, the string becomes this. Well, but once again, it returns a new string. And you can capture that string in some other variable. But the original string is unchanged. It's a pretty good utility. Let's talk about an important concept in Python, the concept of mutable versus immutable types. Okay, so for example, numbers, string, tuples, as we will see in future, they are, sorry, my mistake. What am I doing? Numbers, strings, tuples, they are immutable data types, whereas lists, sets, dictionaries, and other, they are mutable data types. What does that mean? A mutable data type, a mutable type actually, or rather a mutable object, can be changed in place. But an immutable object cannot be changed in place. Okay, what does that mean? That means, suppose I write this x equals to Mars. What happens internally is that in the memory, there is a string object Mars that gets created. And then a name x is created, and x starts referencing this Mars string object. This is a string object. Python understands that. Python internally keeps track of that. Now in the next very line, now if you try to do something like, let's say x of 0 equals to something, you try to say x of, suppose, let's go back here. Suppose x equals to Mars, and you write x of 0, so it will give you the very first character. But if you try to change it, you want to say x0 equals to, let's say, z, then you get an error that the string object that does not support item assignment. All right, so that is an immutable type. On the next very line, however, you can reassign the name to something else. So in the next very line, people sometimes get confused by this. You can, next very line, you can say apple this. So what this statement does it is, all of these statements in all the programming languages, they begin from here and they go like this, right? So first an apple object is created, which is also an str type. And what happens is this x starts pointing here, and this link is no more. Then Python checks whether anybody else is referencing Mars. If nobody is referencing, then Python just deletes that object automatically. So that's the memory management part. Python takes care of that. But your x is now pointing to the new string object, which is apple. So this object here is immutable. You cannot change it in place. Okay, and all the methods in string, indexing, slicing, and all of the other methods that are string specific, like replace, they will return a new string all the time. They will never change the original string. Any questions? We
Can
will
you
be
repeat
using,
the mutable data types and immutable data types? You had written something on the screen.
come again.
Can you repeat the mutable data types and immutable data types one more time?
So immutable data types are something that cannot be changed in place. For example, strings are immutable data type. They cannot be changed in place. So if you have a string like this, x equals to Mars, and you try to assign an index, then you will get an error. Whereas if you had a list, suppose this is a list, okay, 1, 2, 3, and you said L of 0 equals to 5, that would have been fine. And list would change in place.
Correct.
So list is a mutable data type in that sense, that list, you can change list in a place, but string you cannot change in place.
How can we get a list of what the mutable and immutable data types are?
You can check the documentation, Python documentation. So all right, with that, where are we right now? Okay, yeah, let's continue. I want to quickly talk about one more important method here in the string class, and that method is called format. Okay, and what that does is, suppose you have, let's say, a name equals to, let's say, Frodo, and age equals to 33. Now you can write like this in this way. So you can write str. So you can write name, sorry, name is plus name plus age is plus age, like that, right? Oh, what did I do? Sorry, my mistake. Str of h, because this is a string. All right. So this age is a number, and you cannot add a number to a string. So I got the error, and I did a str of age. So essentially, you can do something like this. But as you can see, this is a little messier way of doing this thing. So what format lets you do is that format lets you declare a template in which you can replace the values with the variables later on. So suppose I am going to say, let's say s equals to, you can just define this like name is, what you can do is you can write name is this and age is this. Now when you say s.format, and you can just specify name and age, then you get a string where the things are positionally replaced. So the name gets assigned to this, and the age gets assigned to the other data type. So name goes here, and the age goes to the second one automatically. And also look at the type conversion that happened automatic. That age was understood to be an integer, and it was converted into a string. That's the functionality of format. Format takes care of that. So it's much more easy to write. This is much more cleaner, as you can see, compared to this bunch of plus signs here. Now, format does not stop there. Format can actually is actually pretty powerful. And let's do something like, maybe let's define this again. And you can also specify numbers here. You can say 0 and 1. So now when you do that and you write this, then essentially Python is gonna now go to 0 to match this and 1 to match that. When you change it, let's say you do age and name, it will become like this. Or rather, I would just change this to prove it. Basically, you can do 1 and then you can do 0. And then when you call this, you will notice that it's opposite. The name is getting mapped here because 0th element is going to match here, and the first element is matching here. So that's the format function that you can use. In the previous class, somebody had a question about whether we can format the precision and everything. You can do that as well. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. In Python 3.6.
Hey Himanshu, can I ask you
Yes.
a question?
Yeah.
What is I'm confused about the 1 and the 0. What's that for?
That's the offset. So this is saying the 0th parameter should match here. The 0th parameter is name. So that will match
Oh,
here.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
That one will match here. And you can also, you don't have to do it this way. It looks much more cleaner, but you can also say, okay, this is the string object. Okay, let's do a simple string object. Okay. This, comma, this, and this. Okay. And then you can just write format here. And you can specify something. You can say 1, 2, 5. So it will become 1, 2, and 5. Whatever you want to pass, you can pass it. So in that way, format is pretty good for simple replacements and also for pretty complex replacements. But I'm going to talk about the complex part a little later. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute if you want to try this out. We discussed two things. We discussed the mutability and immutability and then the format. So you can just try this out if you want to. in Python 3.6 and above, Python has also introduced something called f strings, which are even simpler than this. And we'll talk about that as well later on. I'm going to create like a small YouTube video just on the formatting because it takes 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to cover everything. And I don't want to consume time right now. All right. So that is format. So far, what have we looked at? We have looked at, we began with a little bit of slicing again. Then we looked at the dir on str. We looked at some functions like find, replace, and then we looked at immutability in strings, and we looked at format method, str.format method. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to some more built-in functions. Okay, and I showed you a page in the previous lecture on where you can find the built-in function. You can just Google it. But let's talk about a few built-in functions that are going to be helpful throughout. So the first one is, suppose you have a string. Let's say the s is equals to hello. The first one is something called sorted. And let's get a help on sorted really quick. So it works on everything that is iterable. Okay, we'll discuss in 2 lectures from now what an iterable is, but a string is an iterable. And return a new list containing all the items from the iterable in ascending order. Okay, so let's run this. Suppose if I write sorted of s. So I'm calling a sorted on a string. So when we do that, we get HELLO. So this is how Python thinks that they should be arranged. Let's look at a better string actually, because this came back same. So sorted of s. Okay, now you see the results. EEINNNRSW and the caps U is the first one. So what sorted does is whenever you pass it a sequence, let's use the term actually iterable. Okay, whenever you pass it an iterable, in this case string, okay, so suppose it has some components x, y, z, a, b, c, something like that. So whatever is the unit of that sequence, based on that unit, the sorted can sort that thing. Okay, so in the case of a string, the unit is individual character. String is built up of that character. So Python sorts the string based on the characters. And then once it's done, for example, it will sort A as the first one and then B, and then it will pack it inside a list. And then it will return that list. The sorted will then return that list. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing individual characters within a list. All right. And you might be wondering why the caps U is the.
Just a quick question though.
Yes.
I thought its sorting should be in alphabetical order.
Come again?
I thought when it's sorted, it should be in alphabetical order or ascending order.
It is in alphabetical order.
So how come the U is before the?
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm coming to that right now. So
it's using ANSI values.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm coming to that right now. So you will notice that the caps U is the very first element. And why is that the case? The case is because Python is going to store every single thing or for that matter, every single language is going to store every single thing in some form of a number, right? So if you have a, how this a is understood in the language of computer is basically you have a Unicode point. So a might be some number, let's say 65. So in the scheme of things, the capital A happens to be smaller than that. So if you want to check what is the value, what is the integer value for each of these characters is, then there is another built-in function which is called odd. You can pass in it a character, and it will give you the value of that. It will give you the value of that particular character. So suppose you do u, caps u, then it will give you 85. So if you do small e, you will see 101. So that's just how these letters are stored in the form of numbers. That is what is used to compare two characters. And you can have any type of character. You can have an asterisk. Asterisk is 42. So the odd gives you the number representing that particular character. And then that is what is used to sort in this particular case. The reverse of this is a built-in function called chr. What chr does is, chr takes in a number, let's say 56, and it will give you the corresponding character. So 56 is essentially 8 as string, or you can say 85, then you will get the u back. If you do, let's say 10,000, you get some kind of an icon back, if you notice on the screen. Or if you keep increasing this number, you'll get something else. Oh, sorry. I think we went above the limit. So 15 something random. So you will see that looks to be either Chinese, Japanese, I don't know, but just one of those characters. So odd takes in a character and gives you the representation, and chr will take in a number and give you the character representation of that number that will be used. All right. Any questions?
So what is the difference between the usage of help bracket and then we call the method, which is the built-in? The other way is help string dot the method. They're different, right?
I mean, as I mentioned, the difference is one is a built-in. So all the method within the string, suppose you want to do s dot upper, right? That's how you call, right? Because it's a string method. You don't write upper of s, right? Why? Because upper is not available as such. It is a method inside the string. So you have to say object dot method. Whereas a built-in function like len can be called on any type of a sequence. That's the difference between built-in and a method within a class. So whenever you want to call help, if you do help on upper, Python would not know what to do. So it will say upper is not defined. You'll have to say, okay, look for the upper inside the str. And then it will be able to tell you.
So the first one is called the class method, and the second one is called built-in method.
Yes. So len is a built-in function len, and str.upper is a class method. So method upper of str objects.
Thank you. Yeah.
When you look at the help of, let's say, chr or ord, the help says there is a trailing slash. What does that mean?
So that it will take some time. When we talk about functions, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So yeah. So whenever you see these functions, for example, when you saw sorted, okay, when you saw this, you notice that there is an iterable, then is a slash, then is an asterisk, then something, 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 something. Okay. So this is a topic inside functions. When we talk about functions, we'll know what these things are. So that is odd and chr. Okay. So this is what I have for the strings. We have pretty much talked about everything that I wanted to talk about string. There are a few things that I will give you as an assignment that you want to explore further. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an assignment right now. And if you want, you guys can stick around and do the assignment. Otherwise, what we can do is we can end the session. I could have started the next one, but I don't want to do it because it's a meetup event for the next one. So let me give you the assignment. The assignment for this particular class is present on my GitHub page. And I'm going to share that link in Discord. And I'm going to explain the assignment real quick. All right, so in this assignment, this time we're going to work on a module, okay? And we're going to develop it inside our IDE, which is Thorny or whatever you want to. Okay, so I'm sending it right now and you should be getting it. We have to complete few functions here, right? And the few functions that we need to complete are, actually, hang on, I think this is not the correct one. Just give me a second. Let me find the correct one. Actually, I will send you the correct one offline. Don't worry. I'm not able to find it right now, but I'll send you offline. But this is for the class for the coming class. Once we do the if else and conditional logic, then we will be able to do that assignment. So ignore this one for now. Okay, and I'm going to send you the assignment in a bit. But that's all I had for this particular session. If you have any question, I'm happy to hang around and talk to you. Otherwise, I can stop the session.